Thank you for inviting me here, Lisa. I was told I have 15 minutes. I'm an educator, so roll with me. It might be 20. I won't go over 22, okay? I try to keep it. I know I have your attention for about 13 minutes, which means that if I tell some stories, I can extend that to about 17, and then center some strategies that can extend it a little bit longer. So do you mind if I step down here? Is that okay? All right, thank you. All right, still got it. Okay, thank you for inviting me to give this keynote. I have deep appreciation for our senior leadership tonight. That's my squad that supports me, Seattle Public Schools senior leadership. My superintendent, Dr. Jones, thank you. Yeah, give senior leadership a round of applause too. Dr. Jones, a round of applause. Alliance for Education, thank you. I feel very privileged for this opportunity. My name is William Jackson. I serve as principal at Nathan Hale High School. This is my, let's go. Okay, all right. I'll vibe with you. I'll roll with that. That means it might be 27 minutes now. I'm in my 8th year. This is my 4th year as principal. And a few values that I hold and I lead with is my why, and that's equity, access, justice, and I lead through love. And I hope to share, I'll pause, go ahead. Thank you. I'm trying to vibrate with you, I appreciate it. I was told to vibrate with the music tonight, so I'm gonna do that. And I tried to lead with that, and I hope some of the stories that I share today are connected with that and are connected to the goals that Seattle Public Schools have in connection to the goals that Alliance for Education has. And so I also intend to share how these goals have been achieved in a small space, but how that's scaled up through the work that our school district has led through. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here. I am truly excited to share a few stories and how it's connected to our work. Next slide. The one before that, please. I have one about, yes, this is the one, thank you. So I have a daughter, she's 2.5 years old. Yes. And she's every bit of 2.5. A few words that she says to me every single day, and I'm learning her cadence, is no, not, and yes, yes. So as an example, I'll say, Noah, babe, do you want to eat a snack? No, not. Yes, yes. Noah, love, do you want to go to the park? No, not. Yes, yes. And what I'm learning and observing from Noah is a skill that I learned from Dr. Mia Williams. And this skill is called a case of one. It's a case study strategy that you take and you examine one person in amongst a large peer group. And that one person can give you a lot of information about the peer group. So Noah's turn. Noah, every day, when she's with family or with me and my wife, Kelly, and we're eating a snack, if I share a bite with Kelly, or if a toy gets passed from cousin to cousin or peer to peer and it doesn't reach Noah, Noah says, Daddy, Noah's turn. And I'll say, yes, Noah's turn. A snack gets given to somebody else, Noah's turn. And if it does not reach Noah, she will dismantle the system. So what I'm learning through the case of one and how it's connected to our work is that our students every day show up to school and show up to our environments and our learning spaces, and they want equity, they want access, and they yearn for justice. And if they do not get their turn, they will dismantle our system in a good way. Sometimes it's a good way. Next slide, please. So my why and how it's connected. A little bit of family history. So I'm now at 19 minutes. Roll with me. The photo that you see on the far right, that is my family. That's my Uncle Gary, my Auntie Janetta, my Uncle George, my dad, William, and my Auntie Glinda is taking the photo. And so it could be your left, I'm sorry. And so before, this was all graduates from Franklin High School. My dad graduated in 1978. Yep. My dad also went to Coleman Elementary School, now Martin Luther King. But my grandfather came from Alabama, moved from Alabama to Chicago to Seattle, to Tacoma to Seattle. And he left with his family, one of 13 siblings, left with his family from Alabama all the way up to Chicago to leave what they call it in American history, the Reign of Terror, left in the 40s and 50s, to escape and to flee from what was massive discrimination, hatred, racism, and he didn't have access and opportunities down in Alabama. And prior to how the Reign of Terror was formed, just a quick history lesson because I was a history teacher. After the Civil War ended, there was a 20-year period where there was a lot of advancement for African Americans and black people in the South, and this was called the Reconstruction. Black people gained property, gained access, gained wealth, and also were able to be a part of the formation of the railroads. There were federal troops down south to ensure that these opportunities were available. And even black people earned spots in Congress. And so some of those existing wealth statutes are still there. However, 20 years into this, the federal troops were commissioned to leave. And that's when the Reign of Terror came in, where the Ku Klux Klan and other groups pushed black people out of the South. And this was a time in history where they called the Great Migration, where black people moved from the South to the northern states. A lot of migration of black people from the southern states to Chicago, Detroit, even to New York, and all the way down to California. So to fast forward this, my grandfather left, moved to Chicago, had some family there, fought in the Korean War, moved his family to Tacoma, then moved, where he worked for Boeing, then moved to Seattle. What he taught his children and what he brought up with his wife, my grandmother, Betty, hard work and determination, do not let anybody put you down. That was his gift to his children. And so my dad grew up in Seattle. He brought his family, my grandfather, to a segregated Seattle where they grew up in the Central District. My dad graduated from Franklin in 1978, and he gave me the gift because he ended up working for Safeway, later on Metro, 76, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 jobs. So he was hard work, and he wasn't going to let anybody put him down. He taught me hard work, but he added an other element to it. He said education. He said, son, I don't have the opportunity to advance and go into executive leadership, but I'm going to create access for you. And so this is your lineage. And so I have to take what my father gave me to the next step as well. For my niece, Jasper, that's at Judkins Park, and my daughter, Noah. And through the case of one, the other Jaspers and Noahs, and the other students and children that are growing up in our system to ensure that they have equity, access, and justice. Next slide, please. So who am I? I was given the gift of being the Foster Award winner for advancing educational access and justice in 2023. Thank you. 2024 Washington State Principal of the Year. That's an amazing gift. And a nominee for the 2025 National Principal of the Year. I'm very honored. As I shared some of my family history, that does not matter to my family, okay? I'm just sharing that because this is one of the spaces that I have to do so. I'm also an uncle. I am a son. I am a husband. I am a community leader. I consider myself one. And I take many of the fruits that my mother gave me, who I lost in 2016, who also worked in teen parent homes. She took me to those. She also worked in community centers. She was also Miss Black Seattle of 1979. And I take those gifts with me and the spirit of the child that is there riding his big willie everywhere I go. And anytime I have an opportunity to step in front of educators, to step in front of individuals, to share, I try to bring that spirit of joy that my mom imparted onto me as she left. Next slide. So, why are you here today? You're here to hear about some of the work that's been done at Nathan Hale and how that's advanced our efforts in Seattle Public Schools. So, educators here, anybody who has served as in any educational leadership position, if it's a dean or if it's a teacher or leader or if it's a assistant principal, one of your first jobs that you have is school discipline. And that didn't sit well with me, especially from how I was raised. My mom raised me not to be judgmental, to love everyone. She would bring kids home, feed them. I mean, we didn't grow up with many resources, but she was a very non-judgmental person, so I brought that into my leadership stance when I came in as a leader at Nathan Hale High School. I couldn't just suspend a student and move on. That was weird to me. That's not how I was raised. I couldn't go back to my home and say this is what I did. That's not how my family would see me any further. So what I did was I built lots of relationships with students, lots of relationships with Black students, lots of relationships with African American males. Because many of them, early on, when I first came to Nathan Hale, they shared with me a lot of data. Some call it street data. Some say student voice. Some use epistemology. Other things, other words to describe what students are sharing with us about their experiences in class. And I was a first-year assistant principal, so I wasn't going to use this information to launch a professional development plan. I just wanted to build relationships, learn about how they were experiencing school. And so they would share things like, my teachers don't like me, I don't care, this doesn't matter, why am I doing this? What does this even matter? And so what I picked up was, we need to create an environment where they feel safe. Because if they feel safe, then they'll begin to go to class more. If they begin to go to class more, we'll start to see a decrease in what we see as adverse behaviors, discipline referrals. But the real fruit was that I was building these unique relationships with them and their families. Every time they came to my office and I had to exit them or a suspension or re-enter them, I would have these long conversations with their families, their community. And so I got this deep, deep information. So then within our school system, we had advisory. So I said, you know what? This is getting old. At the end of the first year, I started a mentorship with all African American males. And you know what was really cool about that? Our strategic plan was getting launched that same year, which focused on African American males. So at the same time I launched a mentorship, our Seattle Public Schools strategic plan was focused on sense of belonging, centering student voice, creating a warm and welcoming environment, creating a culturally responsive workforce, and centering African American males. So it supercharged the efforts. And so I was then collecting the student voice and not just holding it anymore. I was actually using this voice to launch professional development plans and operationalizing racial equity. So now we're hearing about what students were sharing. I don't feel safe. We have a strategic plan focused on warm and welcoming environment. Let's also use what we were reading with culturally responsive teaching in the brain, also with historic responsive literacy, and ensure that students have access to their classrooms, and that teachers are shifting their practices by centering students' experiences in life, epistemologies, and how they create learning environments. So over time, it shifted from creating access and safety to classrooms to also how can we change our school community? So then they shifted and they operationalized it. They wanted changing hiring practice, changing staffing, changing how we hire staff and arrange our course catalog. So we then launched ethnic studies, Black studies. We shifted who we had for our department chairs to ensure that students had access to all the opportunities, and our African American males did as well. And so this was all supercharged by our strategic plan efforts, supported by our Alliance for Education efforts as well, because we started to also shift not only our hiring, but our staffing, because our instructional assistants, that were many of them were African American, wanted to become teachers through the Seattle Teacher Residency. And also we began to support students through access in other ways. So then that's where we are at today. Through many of the changes that have happened, students wanted access to advanced courses, so we ensured that not only do they take U.S. history, we don't take U.S. history. We take ethnic studies, college and high school. College and high school is free for all students. But before it was free, I got support by Seattle Public Schools to launch it, to ensure that all students had access, centering policy 0010, our inclusion policy, to ensure students have access to advanced learning, all of our students. But not just advanced learning, culturally responsive advanced learning too, and that's ethnic studies, English 101. So these are the moves that were operationalized by the support that was given from our strategic plan efforts and from our Alliance for Education. Next slide. So as the students have led, this is the modus operandi, the mode of operations, defining a school challenge, activate and empower. That's where students empowered through their activation, teaching and learning, focus on inclusion, racial equity, grading and content, and adaptive and technical change. So the adaptive change of the hearts and minds, connecting with students, building that welcoming environment, and the technical change of the operations, hiring and staffing, budget process, master schedule, to the nitty and the gritty of how schools operate. Next slide, please. So, I have one last story, and I'll conclude. As I shared all those amazing things that have been led through Nathan Hale's efforts and Seattle Public Schools' efforts and Alliance for Education, we're sitting at the crux of this right now. Educators in the room, you know, final story. Right before we leave for break, it's a source of tension for teachers and educators, because you have students that are extremely excited to leave for break. Then you have students that have anxiety because they don't know what the next step is for them after they leave for break. So we had spring break coming up, and there was a big fight in our school. And these are always opportunities to connect with students. So I met this student. She gave me the authority to tell this story. I'm going to skip all of the messy fight stuff, but I'll tell you this unique story. Student named Aaliyah. There's those micro moments when you're connecting with a student, as educators know, when you sit in a room and their family's on their way. So I asked Aaliyah, I checked your grades. You have 4 A's and 2 D's. Why? Why not straight A's? And she says to me, oh, I'll get that work done. That's fine. And I said, but wait, we've been sitting in here for 10 minutes. Why not just do it now? Then you can go for break and you'll have a great time. And she said, you know what? I don't feel like it. I said, why? And she said, when I show up to school, I am excited to see my friends, but then my feelings go like this. And so I only had about 3 minutes left before I can even, because her father was on the way, so I didn't have time to investigate that. So I jumped and I said, Aaliyah, can I ask you one question? She said, yes. What would it take for you to come to school and be excited about learning? And she said to me, I would be excited about learning if the aesthetics were nice in the classroom. She shared this. And then she said, if all my teachers cared about me and loved me. And I said, wow, I'm back at the beginning of the cycle. And not only am I back at the beginning of the cycle, we're also uniquely here. I said, thank you, Aaliyah. I am excited to talk to you more in the future. We're also uniquely at the beginning of a new strategic plan. Our Alliance for Education is also supporting our strategic plan focus as well. So, with the Seattle Teacher Residency, with the Right Now Needs Fund, all of these areas have helped support not only Nathan Hale, but Seattle Public Schools. Our Seattle Public Schools' efforts to launch a strategic plan centering students in need and students of color furthest from educational justice. So my ask is that tonight, moving forward, you consider that in the focuses for our school district and for the Alliance for Education when they raise the paddle. I appreciate your support. Thank you for giving me the time. I hope I landed within the moment. My name is William Jackson, and I'm grateful to be here. Thank you very much.